Find the area of the pictured rectangle. Here we have a rectangle that's 12 inches long and 8 inches wide. Now, area is a measure of the space inside the rectangle. To measure area, we want to imagine filling up the inside with squares. Here, our measurements are both in inches. So the squares that we would use are squares that have sides of length 1 inch. Each one of those squares is called a square inch. So how many square inches do you think would fill up this rectangle? So I've gone ahead here and drawn a grid of squares on our rectangle. Each square has sides of length 1 inch, so each square is called 1 square inch. Notice that there are 12 squares across the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Also notice that there are 8 squares going up and down along the side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now the area of this rectangle is how many squares fill up the inside. So let's go ahead and count the squares. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now wait a minute, this is going to take forever to count up all these squares. There's got to be an easier way to get the total number of squares without counting them one by one. And there is an easier way. You see, there's a couple ways I can think of the squares being arranged on this rectangle. I can think of the squares as being arranged in strips going across. Each strip going across has 12 squares, and there are 8 of those strips of 12 squares. Another way to think of the rectangle is being formed by strips that go up and down. Each strip going up and down has 8 squares, and there's a total of 12 of those up and down strips of squares. In either case, I can get the total number of squares by multiplying 12 times 8. When I multiply 12 times 8, I'm multiplying the length times the width of this rectangle. We can multiply the length times the width to get the area. Let's go ahead and write that down. So we've just seen that we can get the area of this rectangle by multiplying the length times the width. In fact, we can get the area of any rectangle by multiplying length times the width. Let's go ahead and do that now for our example. Remember, the length was 12 inches. And the width was 8 inches. So my shortcut way of counting up all the squares is to multiply 12 times 8. 8 times 2 is 16. Write down the 6, carry the 1. 8 times 1 is 8, plus 1 is 9. So I have 96. 96 is the total number of squares. That was a lot easier than counting those squares one by one. And because we're counting squares here, we say our answer is 96 square inches. The word square is important because it tells us that we're counting squares that fill up the inside of the rectangle. From now on, for any rectangle at all, we can calculate the area by multiplying length times the width. We can use this shortcut way of counting up the squares that fill the inside of the rectangle.